All right, so in this video, it's essentially an unboxing of the DL5. To my knowledge, it's the most expensive dermatoscope available. And for obvious reasons, those who are looking to invest in the DL5 are interested in knowing what does it come with. When I get the box and I open it, what can I expect inside besides the DL5 itself? So I just want to walk y'all through that experience of what you get when you receive the DL5. Now, when you very first open it, besides the DL5 itself, you see these instruction cards. Now, like many modern electronic devices, the older method of including typical paper instructions is increasingly less common now, and instead, Dermlite is following that trend of providing a link to the online instructions. And so that's what you get here. There's one card which has a kind of a simple diagram of the basic functions of the DL5, while the other card has a QR code that you can scan and it will take you directly to the full instructions. And then, of course, we have the device itself. Now, I have another video which goes into greater detail of how the selector switch, how it works for providing the variable degrees of polarization. So I won't get into too much detail here, but just initially playing around with it, you can see that this switch, it has the scroll feature, which allows you to move through the full range of polarization. Now, if you choose not to scroll, and in my opinion, in day-to-day practice, most people are not going to actually scroll through all of the different levels all of the time, especially when you're doing kind of a quick skin exam. But instead, you can choose to simply use the option of when you initially turn it on, like all other dermatoscopes, it defaults to the full polarization mode, and then you tap it one more time. And in the case of the DL5, the second press takes it to non-polarized. So just to clarify, if you haven't seen that other video, the range of the DL5 runs from full cross polarization through non-polarization in the middle, and then full linear polarization or parallel polarization on the opposite end. And then, of course, one of the other unique features of the DL5 is the ability to examine using UV light, and that is controlled by pressing the upper of these two buttons once, which initiates the UV light mode. And one unique thing about the UV light is that rather than scrolling through the levels of polarization with UV light, instead the scroll feature allows you to adjust the UV light, moving it from brightest to dimmest and back up to brightest. And so whereas the top button controls the UV light, the bottom button is for the pigment boost lighting, as we see here. And then, of course, the torch light, which simply the option to add light to your exam area independent of the dermatoscope itself. It just simply allows you to add additional lighting to a given area. And as you can see, it's a pretty bright light, and it is controlled with this button. Now, the ruler on the other side, another unique feature, you access it by simply pressing gently in the middle of the ruler, which then elevates either side and you can slide it out. And it is magnetic, so when you slide it back in, you can feel the magnet grabbing hold, and it holds it pretty well. It doesn't easily pop out. Now, the faceplate itself, extension and retraction of the faceplate, as we see here, that is a familiar feature of many other dermatoscopes. One thing that is unique about the DL5 is that whereas other dermatoscopes often have kind of pop-off faceplates, the DL5 has a faceplate which actually screws on, as we can see here. Now, at first, I wasn't really sure why it might be an advantage to have it like that, but one area that I can definitely see it helping is with maintaining the cleanliness of the inner aspect of the faceplate. You know, those of us who have dermatoscopes with the extendable faceplates that pop off or even are magnetically connected, there's definitely more likelihood of lint and dirt getting on the inside, whereas this one screwing on and being sealed as it is does seem like it's going to be much more likely to maintain the cleanliness and decrease the likelihood of getting very dirty. Now, the size is something I do want to bring up, and it's important because we actually have had a couple of returns come back by customers who purchased the DL5 and they admit they love it, they like the features, but it is just bigger and heavier than they thought it would be. And it's bigger and heavier than they wish to carry all throughout the day seeing patients. So as you can see here, it's right around 7 inches in length, and the handle itself, we're looking at about 1.5 inches all the way up to the lens, about 2 inches in diameter. So just keep keep that in mind. I mean, pull out a ruler and look at it. If you are not a very big person or your hands aren't very big, it's just something that you may want to consider if you do want a dermatoscope that you carry around and use all throughout the day. Now, the weight here in grams, 284 grams, and right at around 10 ounces. Now, the lens size, I'm sure some of you have read where the DL5 has a true 32 millimeter lens, and that is the case as we can see here. Now, moving on to the accessories, we've got the charging base, the quick release belt clip, the leather holster, the eyepiece, and then of course the magnetic connect clamp. So when it comes to charging, you can actually charge the DL5 by one of two methods. The first of which is using the charging base. I know this sounds funny, but this is actually kind of important because I haven't had a return, but I have had a couple of customers contact me who were confused about how it worked. Now, in the cable itself, there are two sides. There is the standard, the USB-A side, which we typically plug into our charging block or our computer, and then there's the USB-C side. Now, it's important to point this out because there are actually two USB ports. The one in the back where it says 5 volt or 5V in, that is where you plug the USB-C side in order to power the cradle. On the front of the charging block, there is a USB-A port, and that is simply to provide us with an extra port should we want to plug our cell phone in or any other rechargeable device. Where the confusion has come in is that we've had some customers contact us who are trying to plug the USB-A cable into the front, into the accessory port, and then they're plugging the USB-C side into their computer, and obviously the charging cradle is not working. So again, to power the charging base, you plug the USB-C side into the back of the charging base, and then the USB-A side into your computer or charging cube. Now, this does bring up another point. Just like many of the phones that we buy nowadays and other devices, a lot of the manufacturers, they no longer provide us with the charging cubes because they just assume that we have millions of them laying around, which most of us do. And so Dermlite has done the same. So you will get a USB cable, but they do not provide you with the charging adapter itself. So surely you have one, but if you don't, you would need to purchase one online or even at the grocery store they have. They're just so common nowadays. And then once it is successfully connected and you place your DL5 into the cradle, you will see the charging indicator lights pulsating as we see here. Now, the other alternative is to simply plug in your DL5 directly to the USB cable and charge it that way. Now, the quick release belt clip as we see here, I think it's nice because it's lightweight, easy to remove without unsnapping anything, but not as protective as the leather belt pouch like we see here, but the leather belt pouch being a bit larger and heavier. Now, the eyepiece is made out of aluminum and rubber, and it's magnetic, and so it connects by simply bringing the eyepiece in close proximity, and you'll feel the magnet making the connection, and it holds pretty firm. But if you're the type that likes to always have your eyepiece connected, just keep that in mind. The magnet holds it in place, but it is not held in place so tightly that a bump or knock against the eyepiece wouldn't knock it off. Okay, so if you are one of those that always likes to have the eyepiece in place, just keep that in mind. It is a magnetic connection. So if you'd like to have it always in place, just be prepared for it to occasionally get knocked and fall off. And then of course we have the magnetic connect system. In this case, it's the clamp which is included. Most of us already know how to use these, but the clamp itself would go on your phone or iPad or other device, and then simply bringing it close to the lens of the DL5, it automatically bridges that connection with the magnet. Now, the ice caps, a sample set of ice caps are included, and as you can see, the base also includes an area to keep some ice caps. Ice caps are one of those things that you either swear by them or you don't. There's not much in between. They're, of course, for providing some protection when performing contact dermoscopy so that you don't have to place your dermatoscope faceplate directly against the oil and skin of the patient. But for those of you who have used them, they're not always the most elegant option that we have. Now, as you can see here, just as an example, the ice cap, if you try to apply it while the faceplate is fully retracted, it just doesn't because the handle gets in the way of the outer lip of the ice cap, and so it just easily falls off. So you have to extend out the faceplate at least a bit. Now, because of the nature of ice caps needing to be used for contact dermoscopy, you're just about always going to be having the faceplate extended anyway. So it's not so much of an issue, but just keep in mind that if you don't have the faceplate extended, it may not easily connect to the faceplate, and even with it extended, they don't hold super tight. Okay, so they're to be used when you need it, when you don't want to have that direct contact with the oil and the patient, but it's definitely not something that is intended to be kept on your dermatoscope for an extended period of time. And so that's it. Not a long discussion about the DL5 function and features. You can refer to other videos for that, but this is again simply an open box. What will you get when you order the DL5? What comes inside? And hopefully it helps. And if you have any questions, just let me know. Thanks.